I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing fowls.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got
like
that.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lou Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
the
an
Chinese critic.
erratic
Mikhail
detective,
Rodriguez.
is Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, Gildarie, you deal with that. You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Gildarie, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Hello there. Welcome to the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon Show. This is a live studio program that comes to you twice weekly, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8:30 p.m. When we do the call-in show, it goes for an hour and a half. This program has now entered its 11th month, and what we have said the past month is that we will show gratitude to those who came here in the early stages, never knowing whether this program would turn out good or whether this program will just fall flat in its face. That didn't deter them. They came and they made this program what it is today, a very much watched live program. And so we've invited one of our earlier guests. My co-host this evening, as usual, is the journalist, the famous journalist. He doesn't like the word famous. And we're going to ask him if he went at the theater again and voted in one of the most barefaced rigged elections since March 2020. You've got to be careful. You've got to be careful. What happened at the Ghana Press Association, you've got to be careful. Is one area called the Caribbean, and when one thing happens in one Caribbean country, it happens, another Caribbean country adopts it. But what I will do is adopt the style of Gildarie. When it's his turn to introduce the program, before he goes to the guest, he normally reflects on a few things. So I will reflect on a few things and then we'll introduce one of the most modest and ordinary ministers, someone that is very, very approachable, and that should be the hallmark of politics. Now, let me do my little Gildarie thing. Ruel Johnson was our guest last week. And while we were talking, he said X, Y, and Z. And I was quite surprised because the American culture has so saturated the world that people who were educated to know that it's X, Y, and Z now pronouncing Z as Z. It is not Z. That's an American intrusion. That's one of the American eccentricities. It is Z. Your car number is PZZ, not PZZ. So it was good to hear Will Johnson say Z, and I approached him in it, and he said that's what he knows it as, Z. Because of the American domination of the world, what we grew up with, one of the famous names we grew up with, the Americans have thrown it out the window. There are 4 seasons around the world: winter, spring, summer, and autumn. The Americans got rid, for some crazy reason of autumn, so they call it fall. And they call it fall because the leaves fall that time of the year. So why would you change autumn to fall because the leaves fall? Well, using the same logic, you should change winter to snow and call that season snow instead of winter. You should go into the store and buy a shoot rather than buy a gun and get rid of the name gun because a gun shoots. Now, there is another thing the Americans have done, and some Guyanese, I've heard them say it, and I would urge you to stop it. It's nonsense. The word is anyway. Americans say anyways. Anyways, let's get on with the show. It's anyway, let's get on with the program. Stop saying Z, it is Z. Stop saying fall, it is autumn. I am in the autumn of my life. Gildarie is in the spring of his life. I don't know where to locate my guest, but I am in my early 70s, and I would say that's the autumn of my life. Stop saying fall and stop saying anyways. It is anyway. The Americans say that. You are not American. You live in Guyana. You were educated in Z, in anyway, in autumn. You are going to look silly in Guyana saying anyways. Now with those words, briefly, I hope tonight we touch on what went on in the Theatre Guild. I've always said I have more than 53 years of social activism and human rights activism, and I've said it over those 53 years. You're not going to get government to listen to you. Governments are going to frown on you. Governments are going to be contemptuous of you if you have no moral credibility and you criticize them and you are worse than them. We've reached a stage where the Guyana Press Association cannot seriously question any government minister. But I'll hand over to Gildarie, and before that, introduce our guest. He was one of the earlier guests on this program and was quite interesting with some of the things he brought out. And I'm sure some of the revelations will be brought out this evening. Our guest is the Minister of Labour, Joseph Hamilton. With those words, I'll take you over to Leonard Gildarie. But before that, I want to ask him if he voted last Sunday. But over to Gildarie.
Did you ask or you want to ask me?
Our guest this evening is Honorable Joseph Hamilton, Minister of Labour and Member of Parliament, and someone with a long political history. So he would know, he will have his take on what happened at the Press Association, because he is a minister and he will have to face those very guys who rigged an election last Sunday. Over to Gildarie again.
Thank you very much, dear Freddie Kissoon. I really enjoyed that commentary. Long-winded a little, but it is what it is. A good night to you, Honourable
I'm like you.
Minister of Labour, Joseph Hamilton, and a good night to our folks out there. Minister, and let me just go back a little, because I have a question to pose to you with regards to the elections and what stemmed from it. Of the Guyana Press Association. I'm very much interested in that because I come from a background of being in the media almost 20 years, 2 decades, and it hurts my heart. I said this Friday that we should even be questioning the credibility of anything related to the press when the press is supposed to be the fourth estate. That should never be. We should be talking about development of this country. So here it is that they were supposed to be, to my knowledge as a journalist in Guyana, they're supposed to be a Guyana Press Association. Somewhere along the way, one President, Neil Marks, took a decision, or a decision was taken, and Neil Marks, journalist, registered the Guyana Press Association as a sole owner business. In January of this year, the current and now the returning president, who was voted in back, Nazim Ragabir, also would have registered sole owner business. What we know as sole owner business would cost about $5,000 at the registry. Guyana Press Association, and for all intents and purposes, that business is owned by Nazim Ragabir. Michael Rodriguez as the also known as the Guyanese critic, took the Guyana Press Association, which is held by or owned by Nazim Raghavir legally, to court. He's questioning why, number one, he is not being allowed to be part of the membership of the Guyana Press Association. And two, he wanted to put a halt on any elections Sunday here, pending the matter being heard by the court. As we know, over the weekend, the court threw that matter out. Now, Minister, I want to ask a question because we have several organizations in Guyana, what we term NGOs, and you could expound a little on that. We also have what you call co-op societies in Guyana. But let me ask the first question when it comes to NGOs. We know that NGOs are set up and they're supposed to be structures in these organizations. Is it required by law that these organizations are audited or registered? First question.
The thing is, look, let me back up before I get there. But people focus on politicians and longevity of politicians. But if you look at Guyana, we have a cultural problem where every organization, I can even dare say even the churches, where people believe it belongs to them. The Burial Society, the Scouts, the Girl Guides, you check around. People dominated the trade unions. I wouldn't even discuss that. So the Press Association is nothing new. I mean, for me, it's not a shock to me, I tell you this, because over the period, what we have been noticed, they had so many persons in this country who present themselves as moral barometer and they're the conscience of the nation and all that kind of thing. And 2020, you see all of that fall apart. And that is what you're seeing here right now with this Press Association. Look, how could you have people belongs to organization and they have no information as to who are the other members? I mean, why would you not want me to know who are members? And that organizations, you have a register of all organizations should have that. But so they don't want that. The other important thing is you cannot have an elections that is going to happen. And I, as a contestant, I'm unable to validate persons who will be voting, because organizations would have a membership, but the rules would say only members whose subscription are up to date will be allowed to vote. Like in the co-op societies, the credit unions, right? So you have membership, but you have persons who, when they're to have an elections to elect office bearers, it is only members whose subscription are up to date can participate in the election to vote for office bearers. The proper thing for something like the Press Association, they should have registered long years ago as a friendly society. And I saw Mr. Burt Wilkins, and I was just telling Freddie, I saw him talking about the age of the Press Association. Age of what? It's the age of nothing. It's a nothing. Because if it is being registered in a person name, the question to ask now about the financial issues, because a lot like a friendly society, they have stipulations. You have to have bank account. You have to have signatories to the bank account, and those issues. So when people write in checks, they are writing it in the name of the president or the chairman. It is being written in the society. Right. Expenditure and your financial statement. Friendly societies are audited. The audit is not as stringent as credit unions and as co-op societies. But I go back to the point where in Guyana, most organizations are taken over by people. Most of you go through all the organizations, but people always, for whatever reason, they focus on politics, and the whole thing. We end up with a 2-term for a president because the conversation was a president shouldn't have more than 1 term. But you have organizations that have in their possession hundreds of millions of dollars of ordinary people money.
And I presume these are the credit unions?
Yes, and they're there for decades.
Wow.
They make no provision for young people, for new people, in some instances, not even for women to participate in the leadership of these organizations. And so I would say this thing to try to dominate organization is a Guyanese thing, and I'm showing you. I deal with them every day, and I could tell you stories from now till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Is it a Guyanese thing, or is it a couple people who believe they could use these?
No, I mean.
No, this thing seems to be symptomatic of Guyana.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. The Bobby's Cricket Board had their meeting, did their constitutional thing, and they have 4 terms for the head. They changed those 4 terms to 6. It's a Guyanese thing. Why would a man want to be 12 years? He's getting 4 by 2, which is 8. Yeah. Now they changed the 4 to 6. It is. Look, Mike McCormack, the head
of that organization.
I was a young boy at UG.
Is it registered? Is it the young
that man is head,
as far as I know.
Excuse me. That man is head of that body for 47 years.
No, I'm going to ask him. Is it human rights
No. It's neither fish or fowl. Most of these things are neither fish nor fowl. And they do that deliberately, so you cannot keep track of finances. They do that deliberately.
So you have 2 issues there, Minister. You have maybe embassies or whoever it is, these organizations from abroad come and say, you're Guyana Human Rights Association, let me give you some money.
The embassies, but hold on. The Western embassies in collusion with them.
No, but hold on. But don't you ask to see the credentials of these organizations? Isn't it a requirement?
No, it's not a requirement.
The Canadian, American, and British ambassadors met a few weeks ago with Mike McCormack.
They need to see the credentials of these people.
You wonder if they asked McCormack, sir, could you tell us how much members you have?
You have the power to step in if you notice something.
No, I can only do that if they're registered. So if you're registered as a friendly society, you're registered as a co-op society, or you're registered as a credit union. Once you're not running it accountable and transparent, the Chief Co-op Development Officer is authorized under the law.
But you have to be registered first.
Yes. So
if you're not registered and you're flying away, you say fish or fowl,
you're
right?
Just in, right.
So here the issue that you have with that, Freddie. I've been noticing, and there's a side thing. I've been noticing a lot of people posting on Facebook and on social media, be coming to Guyana, and I have a foundation in Guyana, and I've been doing this. I'm sure, I bet you, Freddie Kissoon and Minister, if you would check on the records of the ministry, the co-ops and whoever it is, friendly societies and so on, you ain't going to find no existence. So how you collecting? On what authority you collecting? That's why I ask you, is it legally required that you
my good friend, I want to take you to a place where the Granger government made available to people. I just did an audit, something they call SLED. Made available to people. We're still counting, but it is suggesting $800 and something million. People purport to be co-op societies that were never co-op societies, never registered. Government funds were given. In one instance, one per sitting MP, $165 million or thereabout was handed to him.
Check
165 million. $165 million
for
one person.
17 projects.
Who's the MP?
No. Please, no.
You would know that a sitting MP. The long and short of the matter. No. Freddie and Gildarie, the audit is public. I have made it public. So you don't have to ask me. Go read the audit.
We don't ask the man to mention that.
But the point
you have
is,
money to pay libel, I don't.
Outside of that, this gentleman, 2 of his sons, one of them was selling cows to the other one, utilizing part of the sled. Money.
Wait, don't say that? Me not understand what you said, huh?
One was a seller and one was a buyer. Selling bulls to the other son. Utilizing
with government money.
With government money.
Our taxpayers.
Yes. That's only one reason I'm discussing. You have had, and look, the audit reports that 2 of the programs that were funded via SLED, their location and address is Congress Place. And the people went there to investigate.
You guys kept quiet about this? Did you open your mouth and say it?
No, we've been speaking about the matter.
Send the audit to Transparency Institute. They only want transparency from government.
So the point I'm making to you, look, is I veer off that to make the point that everything about these people who are in these organizations are about money. And they keep them the way not structured. Because who will ask them a question? You have a sole trader company. Who has authority to ask the sole trader what you're doing with the money?
Could we form a co-op tomorrow?
Me don't know, but I want to know. I want to know which lawyer. Hold on. Which lawyer?
I form a co-op. How much you could get? I want to buy a car.
It all depends what type of co-op you would form.
Back to board, look.
Yes.
Which lawyer that is worth the salt would advise the president of what was purported to be the Ghana Press Association that look, Joe, or look, Minister, you need to go to the registry, and this is one way that you could get some money, and if you register it as a sole owner business, you could be able to do it. Which lawyer in the own or worth the salt would advise the president of an NGO, and more so yet, a reporter who's supposed to have some logics in his head? Who does that?
Gildarie, based on the reports, I was out of town in Madhya. Based on the reports, I'm told a lawyer was a returning officer of these elections.
No, I don't think that.
He was a guest there.
No, but I don't think he would advise. He would advise.
No. The point I'm making to you.
He must know if
a lawyer was a returning officer who did not understand that before you can have an elections, I need to see a list of the people who will vote at the elections.
He was a guest here. Maybe we should have him back.
You follow me?
I'm sorry. Maybe we should look. If we agree to come back, would you debate him?
No, the point is, I mean,
no. But he's making a good point.
The lawyer was there. The lawyer was returning officer.
A lawyer,
our former guest.
A lawyer was the returning officer at these farcical elections. The first thing a returning officer asks for, and I've been around, is the list of electors.
As critic could say, then you can't make these things up.
Then you qualify who can vote based on up-to-date payment of subscription.
I would have liked to see the list because I think my name was on that list.
That's the point.
I think I am paid up until this year.
Did you receive?
But I didn't know. I would have gone and voted for Neil Marks.
Did you receive an invitation?
I don't believe
asking you to go vote? Did you receive an invitation to your? I'm not sure if I'm still a member.
I know I'm a member. I received
nothing.
How would you know? I think my thing is paid up until the end of this year.
I'm not asking you that, Freddie Kissoon.
My thing is paid up until the end of this year.
Have you received a notice?
I've received no notice.
Did you receive any invitation that
I've received nothing. If I knew days before that I could have checked my name, I would have gone and checked my name.
Listen to me, man. Listen.
I am a member.
I'm talking about how organization run and should run. And if I go back to those that I supervise as minister, right? You're calling a meeting, you have to send notice. The law stipulate how many days notice you have to give the man. The law stipulate how the notice must be transferred to the man via register post and all them sort of things to ensure that everyone who is to be at the meeting will be at the meeting. You follow the point? Once you're veering out, and let me make this point. Even if they're not registered as a friendly society, whatever, the moral law dictates.
Thank you very much.
We'll come back to we'll come back to the Guyana Press Association because that thing doesn't augur
Yeah, it doesn't
for the future. That thing, we just went through March 2020, and you would think, but I want to carp and harp on this ownership. Do you know it's going on to it's done 35 years that one man is the head of the Ghana Public Service Union? Now, the public servants, everyone is sympathetic. Look, I like President Ali. I believe President Ali is doing a fantastic job. And I would say right now, I think public servants deserve a substantial increase, and I hope they get it the next budget. But they're doing themselves an injustice by keeping Patrick Yard there, because put yourself in the mind of the ministers of the government. These people are going to negotiate with a man who is 36 years head of the union, head of you for 36 years.
But you come back to the same point. Look, as I understand it, the law was changed to facilitate a non-public servant to be an executive member of the Public Service Union.
Who changed that?
The same.
Don't call him.
No, but it was somebody from the union.
Yes, just for the point that he made earlier, where a man changed the constitution to allow for 6 terms instead of 4.
Well, I want to ask you this question, Minister. Taxpayers' dollars. Are taxpayers' dollars being used to give to credit unions in Guyana?
No, not credit union. You're talking about unions.
The unions. Unions.
Every year, money is appropriated to make available to unions or umbrella unions to help them with things like training and so. The government position is that if you don't make available to us a financial statement, you wouldn't get the money. And therefore, since I'm minister, it is only one union that qualified by doing.
May I ask you which union that is?
GAU.
And the rest of them?
No other.
How much money did they give up? Let's say, could you read?
I can't remember the number, but that money is
Guyana, our taxpayer dollars goes to the trade union.
Hold on.
The Lincoln Lewis.
No, it don't.
No. You understand what the minister is saying here? The minister is saying, y'all listen to this. Unions are being given money by government for training of the members, among other things. It amounts to millions of dollars per year. But because there's not any audited financial accounts that you're being required to give to the government as your commitment that you're transparent, they send back the money.
Yeah,
Make sense?
Because the guy, they said, I have had one said to me, why should we tell you how we spend the money? I said, well, then I don't have to give you government money.
Ask you that?
Yeah, why should we? Discussing the same thing.
Money?
Discussing the same thing about the financial statement. And therefore, monies that can be utilized on members to do training and development goes back to the consolidated fund, because the leadership of these unions are refusing to be transparent.
Is the trade union Congress,
yes,
they submitted their...
No.
I would like to say to you, Mr. Minister, that I hope that my government is ensuring that all the monies that they're spending is accounted for.
No. That's the point I'm making to you.
Right. I would like
that no money was transferred to these guys who are refusing to just say how you plan to spend the money or how you would have spent.
But you ever seen Lincoln Lewis Lincoln Lewis is a recurring decimal. Every time he writes to open his mouth, the government must do this, the government must do that, the government must follow the Constitution. Is Lewis following the laws?
Look. I have said...
That's the problem we have in this country.
I have said this and I repeat it. Look, trade unions, most of them, I wouldn't say all in Guyana, they have outlived their time. The leadership I'm talking about.
That's so sad.
They are fossilized beings. They don't contribute to the development of their members. In a lot of instances, I believe many of them, their concern and interest is just the union dues. And I have enough evidence to back that up. They have no concern about the membership and their development. and therefore they're in it for the union dues that come to them. And I'll tell you this, you would note, their arguments always against whether government or private sector is always about salaries and wages. An important component, and I've been saying that to trade union leaders, of any collective labor agreement must be occupation safety and health. Because I argue this. Mm-hmm. Why you argue the case and the man could work for $5,000 a day and then next week he will die? What have you done for him? You follow the point I'm making? So if you're not arguing about safe work, collective labor agreement cannot be only salaries and wages. I'm talking modern, right. The environment to work in, the safety, issues about training and all that kind. And I would point you all to the most progressive collective labor agreement signed in this country is between GT&T and the Postal Telecommunication Workers Union, because it speaks to training and development of staff. And enshrined in that collective labor agreement, it talks about once the company commit to training, once people are trained, their salaries automatically are raised and those kinds of things. And so, but the other people, I would say a lot of people in here, they're just in it for the union dues. The other important thing, look, trade unionism and trade unionists, they have to see the private sector or the government as partners. It's not anymore, when you have to fight down the colonial masters and so, because you all of us are citizens of this country, and therefore we have to be partners from wherever we're coming. And that's why I just said that the whole approach to unionism is fossilized. It's not where they understand the movement and change and how the labor force is moving. I'll give you another point. You have now the issue of a contract employees. They always make this argument that we're allowing for contracts because we want to weaken unions. You go and do a census, talk to young people. Most young people, Gildarie and Freddie, they don't see themselves working at a place like their mother and father for 20 years and 30 years. They're nimble professionals. They can diversify their talents. And therefore, for them, contract work is useful because twice a year, they have what they call the gratuity, which is 22.25%. Mm-hmm. And that money they can utilize to do things. It's cheap money. They don't have to go and borrow money at the bank. And when I was at the Ministry of Health as parliamentary secretary, many young doctors would come to me and say, Minister, next gratuity I will put down on my car, or next gratuity I will put down my foundation, or I will buy my windows to my house. So that is how young people are thinking. I believe those people need trade union representation, but unions are incapable of developing a strategy to have those persons become members of unions. So they continue the way whereby you have the check-off system. They like that where the government do the deduction and transfer it to them. Mm-hmm. That is, they enjoy that. So the whole trade union landscape.
There's a missing, when he's finished, there's a missing link here.
Need retooling.
But there's a missing link here. If the government assigns money, and substantial in terms of millions, to trade unions, does the government have constitutional jurisdiction or legal capacity
or the powers
to pass legislation to say trade unions must have term limits for their leaders?
That might be dictatorship.
They can't do that.
The point, no. We'll be accused of all kinds of things. We'll be accused of all kinds of things.
So Patrick Yard and Lincoln Lobos may be there.
Yeah, forever until we have wait. The point is they're doing a disservice to their members and to the union because they're failing to include women in the leadership. They're failing to include young people. And if you note, look, there was a time in this country, based on the record, we had over 100 trade unions in this country.
Yeah, now it's about
18. 18 that are stuttering, except for GAU and a couple others. Think about, you have moved from over 100 trade unions representing people in this country. And this is the birth of trade unionism in the Caribbean, this country, right? And you're moving from 100 to 18, and yet they're not understanding. People don't care about them anymore. You follow the point I'm making?
No. And Freddie, and this is interesting, but before you go, Freddie, I would love to hear some information that's coming out. So there's a whole workforce that's open in oil and gas.
Yeah.
What are the trade? I think GAO has indicated that they're working very hard to make some inroads there. But I would love to hear what are some of the campaigns or some of the plans by the trade unions to really represent the people, because we know that the workers are going to be shafted there. And here's a perfect opportunity. You would have lost out from sugar and a couple of other areas. Here you have a big workforce now. Why are you not capitalizing?
The mistake they're making, Gildarie, is this. You cannot, in this modern time, go to Culture News front page to make your arguments. You have to go have conversation with people. That is how you enter. You cannot create antagonism. And that is the mistake I see many of the unions they have made or already made. I want representation. I have been speaking to the people in oil and gas. I have had conversation with Exxon, making the point that you have a moral duty to ensure that equal pay for equal job and all those issues. But the point is, I think the methodology the trade unions are using, it's a wrong methodology. They should seek to
Stuck in the past.
Yes, right? So the other important, I have had to engage companies in oil and gas who had contracts that was brought to my attention, and that debar workers from ever wanting to join a trade union or form trade union, and I've dealt with those matters. But you have to be sophisticated. You understand me? You can't go with a big hammer and start to fight. In my view, the methodology must be engagement.
But there's a big market there.
Yes, there's a huge market, and the market will lucrative market, huge market. It will develop more. You know, when we talk about oil and gas, Freddie and Gildarie, you know, we only talking about one company, Fine Oil yet.
No.
A lot of people ain't cast their minds.
They're not.
Beyond ExxonMobil, we have Tullow out there, we have CGX, we have this body, that body. Think about it. Just think for one moment.
Freddie?
That all of these companies, so far you have 11 point something billion, and all of them could find 5, 10, whatever number. You understand where we're going?
We are then talking about a vast opportunity for trade union expansion.
But that's what I'm saying. Look, if you
who are these trade unions?
all of them fighting for the same market.
Do they have credibility?
Yeah, but here's a huge thing.
It is so sad that the trade union movement in the Caribbean, you see all this talk about the PPP, PNC, the Jamaican Labour Party, Barrow in Barbados, and Guyanese. The trade unions stood side by side with the national movement and was able to add force and impetus and impact in the anti-colonial struggle. Look at them today in Guyana. You know, the trade unions are much respected in Barbados. That's the Caribbean country I know most after my own country, Guyana.
Barbados has a tripartite pact with the trade unions. The government, the business, and the trade unions. So national plans.
Has to be centered.
They develop and massage them together. So important that
the head of the Ghana Trade Union Council went to the government and said his great I think that's his four greats grandfather had owned this land, and therefore this land is his. 125 acres. And he has no paper to show
The people are
that his
really living.
great-great-great-grandfather.
Somebody's asking the
This is a
question.
trade union leader.
No, there's a madness. What are we supposed to be paying attention to? We need serious leaders in this country. Minister, I want to ask, if somebody's raised a question, is there any moves by this government to raise the retirement age above 55?
No, what I know is a conversation. I think it has to be a national conversation because I would suspect you talk to the Minister of Finance and other people in finance, it has financial implications. So I would say that we need to have a national conversation around the matter to reach at a place. Many countries have already done it. They have taken to 60, some to 64, and that kind of people are living longer. Therefore, it's something that we, as a nation, we would have to look at.
Your opinion. I want to ask you your opinion. Do you believe 55 is too young of an age to retire as a politician?
I would say this. I would say it this way. I am not as old as Freddie, but I'm 70 or thereabout, and I don't plan to go anywhere.
But then you'll be a contemporary.
I don't have a plan to go anywhere by. I don't plan to go by Sandy anyway soon.
Right.
So I'm answering. So a person 55, a young person. That's the point I'm making, right? They still have a lot of years to give. And many of the people are full of capacity, full of intellect,
But wait a minute.
full of experience.
President Granger had a commission of inquiry into the public service. I was one of the person who appeared there, and my testimony centered on upping the retirement age to 55.
From 55
Yeah,
to
from
what?
55 to 60
Uh-huh.
and beyond. I was in the witness box, and that was my presentation. And when the final report was done and released to the public, it recommended upping the retirement age. I don't understand these people who are now claiming, I have when this thing about Ogunse and what he said came out, I said in this program, he is one of the country's leading hypocrites. When they were in power, where was the empowerment of Africa? Where was Ogunse's voice for the 5 years as Ogunse was in power? You know what I always say? If somebody come from the mountains of Afghanistan and listen to David Hines and Taguma Ogunse and Clive Thomas, they would not know that these people had power for 5 years. You know?
You knew that?
They had power for 5 years. If you don't know that,
They were in government for 5
they were in government for 5 years.
I'm just asking. It's all right.
Exactly, you should know that. He ain't doing his work as a journalist there.
but the point is, look, I go back to this point. When I became minister, one of the first interviews I did, somebody asked this question: how does it feel to be in a cabinet at this juncture in Guyana's development? And I said, I've lived long enough because I'm not a young guy. And it is the first time, young Gildarie, in my life, I can feel, taste, and touch development. All the things we dreamed about, all the things we hoped for. I mean, in my time of age, from a boy growing up in the country to now a grandfather, is the first time you really can see it. You can feel it, you can touch it, you can taste it, it's there in the palm of our hand. I have a friend, Gomes, who's a lawyer. Every time he see me, they start the conversation.
Euclid Gomes?
Euclid said, Joe, we should have born now. Mm-hmm. And we should have born, right, Freddie?
I think
Are you talking to me, who worked 26 years at UG, and when we finish in the night to go and eat something, there's nowhere to eat? We couldn't have papers to give our students handouts?
So Gildarie born now, right, Freddie?
You don't know. They are going to inherit this country that we work hard for.
I'm glad that you acknowledge that I'm way younger than you are.
He is going
So importantly for young people who might be who listening to this program, the opportunities that are out there.
I want to bring you to a particular area which has been, somebody asked me to raise this question here. You know, the lands of Guyana, lands are becoming very, very expensive in Guyana. You go along these banks and you might get a plot of house land that is millions and millions. I saw 2 houses in Queenstown selling for $100 million.
Each?
Front and back house in Queenstown, right in Queenstown here. The previous governments over a period of time would have granted large plots of lands to co-op societies in this country. And they would have said, you have yourself structured and organized, and we're going to give you this land, and it's for the membership to develop and build a life around that. Over the years, people died, people migrated, and so on. I happen to know, and I'm sure that you happen to know, Minister, because the complaints, I think I've reported on this. I think there was one in Bellevue, that co-op societies ended up in the hands of one or a few persons, and they control vast amount of lands, hundreds of acres, maybe thousands in some case. What is this government doing to ensure that the people's property, I want to say people's property, state lands, are being utilized, or they have been given to the people and they have been utilized in the way it's also
I made a comment.
And benefiting to the people.
I made a comment last budget debate. You know, the position is that is either co-op society resolve the issue about transparency and accountability, or they will be dissolved. And I was accused of attempting to take away black people's land. let me clarify this foolishness, because in Lincoln Lewis once wrote a long letter making this saying that it is a damn lie to suggest that co-op societies are only in the hands of people of African descent. That's the first point. Co-op societies are in the hands of people of African descent, people of Indian descent. They have co-op societies in the interland communities. You have co-ops like forestry co-ops and all that kind of. So I'm trying to set the record straight. Now this conversation, these racists, they bring up to suggest that it is only black people who own co-op land is a damn lie. That's the first point. Most of the agricultural type co-ops are owned by, you understand, or at least the body who formed it, or people of Indian descent. But importantly, you have, as you have said, in the hands of co-op societies are thousands of acres of land, most of them unproductive. You have people, second generation, third generation, who have become landlords, who the land that
but it really belongs to the co-op.
Yes, they belong to the co-op. They're leasing it out, and they're. I just went to Seafield the other day.
This is Lenora?
Seafield in West Coast Berbice.
Okay.
And the same issues. People petitioned me, and I went up there. And then you have this other issue where some people, to continue the unaccountable behavior, the co-op the land suddenly become ancestral land. Are you understanding? So it's ancestral land.
So they're entitled to it.
So they're entitled to it by being a person of African descent. So that's a way of trying to move away from accountability and transparency.
Sounds like Lincoln Lewis at work.
We have taken up. Look, we went up there. Myself, the AG led a team of myself, the AG, and Minister Kroll. We were in Ansgrove. They have about 2 co-op societies there, but 500 members, and so people, some of them don't build. And the government took a position that what we will do, we will ensure that every person who wants to work with us get their title for their property, so that they can monetize. Right now, they are in the co-op society that is not transparent and accountable. They have property that value $50 million, but they can't use it as collateral.
Because it's not regularized.
Because it is not regularized. So the government has taken the position whereby we would ensure, however the co-op is being run or not run, we will lay that aside for a while, and we will engage individuals. We have started already in Ansgrove Ministry of Housing and Lands and Surveys, they have gone to validate the ownership and all that kind of thing. And we will process. We have a part to play, that is the Ministry of Labour, Co-ops Department, and no objection letter, we will to housing.
I want to see how that play out because somebody was making a joke. They say if you want to see people fight for land, let the Venezuelans try to take away their group of people land, because then you're going to see war. But it is a serious thing that you have how one man or two men could control thousands of acres when it belongs to a co-op. It belongs to families, generations of families. But it also belongs to the state.
And let me say this to you, Leonard, I was in Serbia, and nearly half of the farms that are producing food are co-op societies.
Because they understand the power of
Serbia.
If you could get it right.
Just across there, same Barbados, got effective co-op societies that are contributing to the state. In Guyana, what has happened, and this is my view with co-op societies, credit unions, they were established in a time when we were tinkering with socialism and communism. And so they have not moved to the position mentally that these things must become capitalist instrument for development. They're not benevolent things. So I think that is the problem you have with them. They're not at this stage whereby, look, you got this vast amount of land, and what are you crying tears about? I had that to deal with earlier o'clock, the Kuru Co-op Society on the highway. I went there, 300 of them gathered, and 2 hours, everybody crying tears about what is not happening. And when they finish, one little scripture, I know you're rich, but yet you're poor. You have nearly 2,000 acres of land, and all you could tell me is about pessimistic things. And you have, and that's
what acres you have, Freddie? What acres you have?
I wouldn't mind a half acre. I don't mind a half acre.
Plant some oranges.
I'm
well, you could go join a co-op society.
Why we don't form a co-op society? How much you can get? 50 million?
What? No, the law said, I could tell what the law said. The law said any 7 persons can come together and form a co-op society. So you have 2, you and Gildarie. Maybe you can critique us straight. And 4 other persons.
There will be the Janjat in the house.
But there's going to be problem with critique.
But seriously.
Critique might push me out.
Seriously, co-op societies, if they run properly, they can become developmental, and that is why they were formed, to utilize as developmental vehicles for communities. But my experience, it has been a sad experience with some of these things.
I want to get your thoughts on something as time going. Do you think we're on the threshold of historical change, that for the first time in the history of Guyana, the PPP may win the Georgetown City Council?
I don't want to, but I know we'll get more seats.
Is it possible they could clinch a 1-seat majority?
No, what I know based on everything that I'm seeing, I don't want to fool myself. I know politics enough. The time of voting and when the voting day come to know that, all kinds of things happen. But what I know, like we have increased seats.
But it's pragmatism.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
The government has the money.
Yeah.
There are billions of oil petrodollars in the system.
Yeah.
It's pragmatism on the part of the Georgetown citizens.
Yeah.
No, if you have a government with money to spend, why are you going to vote in a party that doesn't have that money?
Because Georgetown hasn't been.
Give the people a chance.
But Freddie, whilst I
am voting for the PPP.
Freddie, whilst I hear you. Freddie,
give them a chance.
The strength.
They're the central government. They have the funds.
The strength.
That's not a perfect word.
Listen to me. The strength of ethnic relationship. We never discount it in politics. I have heard during my campaign 2011, 2015, 2020, I have heard intelligent people of African descent who said they would rather suffer under a black man than for vote for a coolie man. You understand me?
I think we're going to have some changes in this city council election.
No, what I know, I'm saying to you, everything suggests that we will clinch more seats in the city. I wouldn't want to stretch it to say that.
Well, you could have
and we have done a lot of movement, you know. If you let them, when Granger establishes as a town, they won the first elections. The second one we won. And now they can't even contest there. We don't win let them already. That is
I think we've had a generational change in this country. We have now become a petro state. You have a central government that has money to spend. Georgetown citizens should give the central government is controlled by the PPP. Yeah. You have a government that is benefiting from an oil economy. Georgetown is heavily ridden with problems. Pavements, streets, alleyways. Look, we in Turkine, the garbage was cleaned a week after. They come every week, they missed a week. All I'm saying is not, all I'm asking for is pragmatism.
No.
Give the government a chance.
Freddie will say, Freddie, how the election going to go? Let me tell you how the election going to go. Most of the people who will vote, and the people will be matured people. We will have a lot of votes, that is a PP, from persons who are the new thinking people, right? Not necessarily young people and people who are mature that are new thinking. But remember, the people who respond to election and voting are mature people. And those, in large measure, are the people who have Congress place in their belly.
Own convictions.
Right? So they you understand me? So they are like the guy I told you, an intelligent man who told me he rather struggle on a black man than for vote a hood man. Are you understanding that? So
that kind of thinking, I think, is slowly ebbing.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you. I think
what is happening to Guyana is going to change minds.
I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying I don't think this round we're likely to do that. This round. We have already won, as I said. Let them. There will be major shake-up in New Amsterdam, major shake-up in Baltica. But Georgetown, I wouldn't stretch it.
Our operator just signaled 2 minutes left. Yeah. I will push in a question, and Gildarie will get in a question. Then you will conclude. You were every night. You were a song in our ears during from March to July. Yeah. I know my wife used to say, Hamilton. Let me go see what Hamilton's saying. So the report is out. That report has now become a historical document. You know the part of the report that I found? And all these people that write letters and sign their name, 27 of them, Red Thread, Transparency Institute, Guyana Human Rights. There's a part of that report in which the police commissioner is admitting that he didn't have control over his he said the officers went rogue. But that report indicted the police force.
Well, we didn't have to get a report or even the election. Look, before elections, we had enough information to know that the police will be utilizing a tool. If you remember, they pushed out Ickens and sent him somewhere. They sent Blanham, even though that boy was doing a law degree. And that's why when these bastards talk about how they care about black people, that's a young black man, intelligent, one of the best crime chief. And they were actually denying him the opportunity to study to be a lawyer by taking him post-detail at Mabaruma. You understand me? So you had that, and several people they pushed out actually of the force, because the person who was in charge of the force wasn't Ramjatan in charge of security services. There was Felix ran the security services. And therefore we knew that a lot of things were developing there. The point is, look, and you mentioned all of these people who write letters. 2020 was good for this country. as bad as it was.
That they exposed
Right,
and
that's the point.
destroyed so many.
That is the point.
People that I looked up to and who influenced me. I remember Moses Bagwan writing a few weeks ago saying Takuma Ogunse is a peaceful and honorable citizen.
So that is it for
my
me.
God.
Important two things, my good friend Gildarie, young Gildarie, is one. As painful as it is to lose power in 2015, it was an important thing for the young generation to see PNC in power. And secondly, in 2020, it was an important thing to expose a lot of hypocrites in this country. You understand me? The elections.
But it destroyed a lot of people that we never believe could have. You know, Clive Thomas writes a column every Sunday in the Star book and never pens a word about politics. Never.
The only thing that I would say or add to what you've said there with regards to the 2020 election is that 218,000 persons voted for the opposition, and 218,000 persons are not getting the money's worth. In addition to that, coming out of this, I would like to say that we got to pay close attention, ladies and gentlemen, to persons who come in this country and purporting to be from any organization. Make sure that before you give them stuff, ask them if they're registered. And if you're part of any organization, co-ops or anything, and people tell you that they own big tracts of land, they don't own it. It's all part and it's being governed by the government under some regulations. And if you're not very clear, ask the co-op, I think the chief, right, the co-op department, get some ideas there. Very very good program in terms of I'm educated a lot tonight.
Well, so
I want to say thank you very much.
Before we close, the last time you were here, you said you were better looking than some other body. I can't remember who's that person.
Do you remember that?
I can't remember. He said he was better looking than somebody, and then I looked. I held the shirt and said, "Well, you're short to wear it." No, where did you get this from? What is that? A Nero shirt?
It's linen and it's a beautiful
shirt. A beautiful shirt.
A cross between a Nero shirt jacket
and Nero and what the man from Tanzania by Neheri. You know Neheri. Where you got that from? Somebody bought it for me, Freddie. You
don't think Gildarie would look nice?
Yeah, Gildarie will look good in it.
You got any?
But gentlemen, thank you very much again for affording me the opportunity to come here and have a gaff with you. I normally look at the program. And you have had some interesting persons on the program. The most interesting person you had, one of the most, was James Bond.
The man with a license to kill.
I think the program is useful. It is good. The fact that it survived for a year, and it will survive for many years.
Well, we're shortly going to have you, the election condom man. So when we come to 2025, we definitely going to have you in the studio a couple of times. Ladies and gentlemen, Guyanese, wherever you are, our guest this evening was the Honorable Minister of Labour and Member of Parliament for the ruling People's Progressive Party. He was here earlier and one of the persons who helped to expand our program and make it a success. So we invited him once again, and it's a program in which we have all learned. I did not know that there are co-ops in this country that have thousands and thousands of acres at their availability, and nothing is being done with that land. I certainly enjoyed the part in which the minister said, because I know this, it resonated in me as someone who's been in politics over 53 years, that people think people just have an ownership mentality. They own their trade union, they own their organization. And finally, it was good to have his take on the disgraceful election of the Guyana Press Association. It was an enjoyable program with our guest, Joseph Hamilton, Minister of Labour. Thanks for watching. We'll be here Wednesday, we'll be here Friday, and the show goes on. As they say in common parlance, catch you later, man.